and they used to come down to my first school, which is Martial Arts and Fitness Centre, when we used to do kickboxing, and we used to do these big lineups. And if you came up against a boxer, you boxed. Then we said change, and then it was a kickboxer, you kicked as well. So that's how we used to do it, and it was all done for fun. But of course, I had a lot of young guys with me then. I must have been, I don't know how old I was then. I was like early 30s. But a lot of the guys who were like 18, 19, they want to fight. So what I did, and the PKA had just come into the country with a guy named Svetus, and he started holding events in Brighton. I used to go up there to all these events, and people like Chris Kent, who was a really good fighter, he's got a really good setup. People come all over the place to fight, and the PKA it got really quite big. And then it was going up to Birmingham and that sort of thing. And I started refereeing. I think the chief referee, I don't know if you know Jeff Britton. He was a drummer for Wings. And he was like the chief referee for the PKA in the UK, and I was like his number two, and all over the place. And my guys started to win things, English titles, local titles, all this sort of thing. And then we did this for quite a few years, and then the PKA really died. That closed down in America, really, and closed here. We got sort of out of it, but then the ISKA started up, and we started to do stuff again. Because we're still teaching kickboxing, we just weren't really looking for fighters. And then some of the guys came along, and it was other associations started, so we started moving around. And I mean, I had 3 world champions from the UK, and we were all fighting the ISKA. I mean, like Richard Vince, one of my students, he was like he was a super heavyweight. He had about 4 or 5 fights, and he was like, he was British champion, European champion. They put him up against Klitschko, and Klitschko, unbeknown to us, at that time it had 150 boxing fights, and I think it had about 100 kickboxing fights, because he was in the army, and all he did was fight. And of course, in the second round, he flattened my guy. But the difference in the training and everything was amazing, But that means we saw some really good fighters from America come over. And then we started taking fighters to France and Italy. And I took one of my guys, Dennis Turner, over to Florida. He won the cruiserweight title. ISKA, so that went on for a long time. But then I had to make a decision what I was going to do. Was I going to concentrate, carry on to what I was doing? But my big thing was what I really wanted to do was I wanted a big American style school, but I was going through a phase at the time where I wasn't making enough money from the karate, because there was clubs then everywhere. When I opened in Ipswich, there had been a club opened up before me, but I closed it down. Not a good thing. I just kept going after the instructor, so he just disappeared. I mean, things are a little bit different to it is now. I got sued now, but what I decided to do was concentrate on the karate. But even that wasn't enough to open a proper school. And then then all of a sudden the first billing company arrived in the UK. So I went to them and I thought, I can now do karate for a living, because we could now do direct debits rather than just a standing order you never could keep control of. So that's what I did. I joined the EFC, and then and so did quite a few other people. And then you started seeing full-time schools open up. Now, and then I'd already had a school many years ago, but it's people paying on the door, and I never made any money, and the school wasn't very nice. And people look back on that school with great love. It's always come to, I remember the old days, because it was blood and guts, that place. It was, and it smelt, and I was there for 15 years. But I wanted to go the new way. So what the EFC gave us the chance, because we were going over to America and seeing schools run by, you know, the top Americans, you know, Bill Clark and all these people who had at that time 20 schools. And, you know, some people just had one school. That's what they're happy with. Some were big, some were small. We just learned so much from these guys in America. And that was my concentration. I then got another smaller school, about 2,000 square feet on a lease. And then I decided I've got to do everything to buy a building. And I bought my building about maybe 30 years ago with a mortgage. I didn't just walk in and buy it with a mortgage, and it's been paid off a long time now. But of course now, you know, it's one of the biggest and one of the best, I hope, schools in the UK. Could never have done it without the help of the billing companies and the Americans.
So Mick, can I just jump back? So obviously you fought in the England team. How did you get selected for that, or what was the process for that?
What happened was, I mean, there was never really, I wasn't one of these people who really, I mean, I've had students who have fought for England for years. I've had other people. Now I wasn't that bothered about the England team. For me, my thing was my club, my own advancement of my club, and what happened with me. I went to Forest Gate, and there was gradings, and then there was a fight, and there was just a fight off. So you just fought different people, and then at the end they say you're in or whatever, you know. And it's a European Championship, and I just got taken along, you know, and some people who were there with me carried on fighting, and I think it's well, I tell you how a lot of difference now is. There was a time when you could represent England in fighting and kata. You never do it now, because if you're doing kumite and kata, you people who I'm not saying it's impossible, but most people now, it's one or the other. Because to be top at kata, you would really have to concentrate on that, and your training would all be for that. People in kumite, same thing. And of course, originally there was no weights, you know, and people like T. Donovan, who won the English Championship 3 times, there was no weight class. I mean, you know, that was the British Championships. So what happened afterwards, there was more fight-offs. I had to make a decision if I wanted to do that. And also I was interested in my club. I wanted to teach martial arts, karate mainly, for a living. That was my main thing. And of course, when Bruce Lee came along, you had the chance, and a lot of people in this country became professional, and I was one of them. And the England team thing wasn't so important as looking in your class and having 50 people in your class and a queue of people looking through the window trying to join. And I missed a big opportunity, because I was charging people 50p a session, and I had like a Tupperware box, and people threw the 50p's in. If other people set themselves up by having somebody sitting at the door who collected all the money, had registers, I didn't do that, but I was really interested in doing that. You know, I wanted to, you know, so things like England team and even for my students was put to one side. When things calmed down, and we were fighting, because we used to. I think what happens to you when you're an instructor, you start off by going to a competition. When you get there, you would do the kata, you would then go in individuals, you'd be in the team, and if you were knocked out in any of these, you judged or referees. So you went there and you were busy the whole day. Now you wouldn't do it, but that's how it was. So I started taking my teams with me. We might have an A, B, and a C team in the competition, and then at the end of it, you know, we had people who were winning, and so then we would send them off to the English team. Then we got back, and then there was the England was in different areas, like obviously north, south, east, west, London. I think it was something like that. There might have been Midlands, a long while ago, I can't remember. And then they would all fight, and it'd be like an area winner. And I can remember that the first time they did it, East Anglia or South East, we won it, and there was things like that run, and I was, I think I was like Eastern area coach or something like this, and I think I might be an assistant coach, I can't remember, again a long while ago, and we turned out some really good fighters, and then I started going up to it and taking fighters with me to the England team. And of course, you've got to remember, over the sort of 50 years or whatever it is, 60 years, I think it is, for me. Then it started off with I think it was the first sort of governing body. I can't remember the name of it now. I did think of it earlier. A Chronic Control Commission, it was called, and because there'd been a murder by a guy called Creamer, and he said he killed the guy with karate, and I think that was all crap. Anyway, that was enough for the government to come in and license everybody. So that was the first association, and it evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved, and over the years, politics and different world organisations, and I just followed it through, following what I thought was the correct path. And so we're in the English Karate Federation, which is WKF, which is probably one of the biggest, and I think the best world body. So we followed it all the way through, and now they don't call the fight. I remember my son was fighting in different tournaments abroad and this sort of thing, and they never talked about them as fighters. They used to say, bring the athletes in. So they're looked upon as being athletes now. We would never, at the beginning, thought ourselves as athletes. We thought we fought in karate tournaments. But now you're athletes, and the control is 100 times better. And the control is 100 times better. And it's just the whole... I mean, it's just evolved so much. And if you look at the fighters now, they are fantastic athletes.
While we're on that subject, Mick, what's your personal views of how much it's changed over the years? Like, it's quite watered down now from when you started, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it is, but I don't think. I think the world has changed. I mean, the countries that do really well, they are now. They're not. They're not the softer countries, but also the leading world. Countries for in karate, they're often from countries where the governments put a lot of money into the sport, into karate. So there's people who are fighting who haven't worked. They just do karate for a living. This is certainly true in Taekwondo with the Korean government and the cookie won that. But also in karate, certain countries, I'm not going to go through it, but certain countries, and often the poorer countries, they really want to win. So I mean, and in England, I mean, people do their best with what they've got, but the money isn't there. I mean. The EKK, we have our coach is Paul Harris. So what he does, we run coaching sessions or fight offs and sort of thing. Everybody pays. I mean, I let them have my dojo for free, and for the afternoon, everybody pays, and that money pays a lot of the time for fighters to go away and the coach to go away. Otherwise, the coach couldn't afford to go and spend 2 or 3 days in, I don't know, in some foreign country, in Spain or wherever it is. So, and of course, the old days of fighting was much... There was a point, I think, to score a face punch, you had to make contact most of the time. And of course, there was no gloves, so you always had lumps on your face. And there was no shin guards. And my left arm was constantly blocking front kicks. So my left arm, if I rub my hand up and down, it feels like your backbone, where the bone is all sort of, dented. because it was so rough. Now, there's a lot of people hark back to those days, but I don't think you would have I don't think karate would be anywhere near as big as it is if we went back to that. There are clubs like it out there, and some could be successful, but for most people, when a mum brings her little boy in for a trial lesson with us, he walks in and she never says, "Oh, is there a world champion here?" or "Has anybody been in the England team?" or "Is it good fighting?" They come in and they're looking for something else. They're looking for maybe him to get fit. He may be coming. He lacks confidence, or maybe he's a little bit wild. All these reasons they bring their kids in. They got nothing to do with standing on a line and punching hell out of each other. And of course now they're well protected, shin and instep, soft gloves, chest guards, gum shields, and in some cases head guards. So there's a big difference, and I'm happy with it, really. And there's always a harking back to the old days. You sound like during the war sort of thing, but I mean, it is what it is, and I'm not unhappy with it.
I think in everything, like the whole health and safety is coming in this country, like so big, isn't it? It's just had to come in just for protection, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I was looking. Before I came in, I was looking at the cameras in my place, looking at some of the classes, and you've got. We have little dragons. Some people say, "Oh, they're too young at 3 and 4 years old." Well, yes, they are. But if you don't get people into that age, they'll go somewhere else. And what you can do with those kids, you can teach them balance. Most they can't stand on one leg or anything. Teach them balance. You give them things and teach them to punch. Make them stand with their feet together, sit with the legs crossed. And parents like that because they don't get it anywhere else. And I was watching the Little Dragons class, and I'm glad I don't teach that. And then you're looking through, and people who are a lot older now, people in their 50s, can join and train because we don't do what we used to. We don't say, "Okay, everybody, bunny hop up and down the hall 10 times," or something like this. We don't do that now because we're aware of what damage.
Mick, can I just ask you, like jumping back there, when we're talking about the England, like the karate not being funded, why is that? Because obviously you got judo, he's funded, isn't it, by the government? How comes karate's never been funded by the government?
Well, it has been. I mean, that Sport England's been involved a few times, and I heard it's been getting involved again. And it does get involved, but there's so much politics. And the problem is, it's like, it's not like FIFA because it's so much small. You get something like FIFA, and then there's all the politics running because somebody wants to control the money, people want to pull it to their factions and this sort of thing. There's always some guy who wants to run it, and we saw all the things years ago with the Olympics and FIFA and this sort of thing. And the same thing applies to karate. I mean, the people often who want to run it are a bit like politicians. We've got to look at it now. Look in England. Who do you fancy? Farage, crikey, or maybe Starmer, and then you look at the Tories. So and it's a little bit like that, and a lot of people who are actually in karate are people who like. That's why there's so many styles in karate, because they like a particular way of doing things or a particular way of fighting, or they're not interested in any sort of politics. They don't want to be told what they do. They do karate. Don't want to be told what they're supposed to be doing. So you've got all sorts of things happening. So it'd be nice to think one day it'll all be funded. But I mean, often the ones who are funded are not necessarily the democratic countries.
Yeah, it'd make it a lot easier, like you say. Like if people are training, they're paid to train. They're going to produce much better fighters at a higher level.
Oh yeah, well,
someone that's got to go to work all day long, earn their money, and then
if you go to the K1s that the WKF runs, so these are fantastic tournaments, and when I went to some of these with my son, I can remember some of the teams were just so well organised. And we had Willie Thomason. He's a really good coach, and he now coaches in Hong Kong, and he's really highly thought of. But of course, our guys never had the money being spent on them with some of these dictatorships and some of these countries were spending fortunes on their fighters, and our guys were the parents as well who are paying the money, driving all the kids for many miles to go and train in some hall, sitting there all day and then driving the kids back. I did it so many times, and I just think, but that's what parents do. But some parents can't afford that, so we're missing some of the good fighters because the parents haven't got the money. I mean, the kit alone costs so much money now. Shin guards and chest guards. I mean, my son fighting someone, and his chest guard got ripped. You're talking 10, 15 years ago, and I had to run up and buy a chest guard, 85 euros, I think it was. Had to go and get it so you couldn't fight in the next round. So you had all the, not many parents can afford that, hopping on a plane, going off to in Luxembourg or somewhere, to go and for your kid to fight, go out in the first round, back on the plane, drive back, or going for a couple of days on a bus, because it's cheaper for some of the parents, and parents are footing the bill for this, and it's a shame, but that's how it is.
Yeah, like I say, it's a shame for the country, really, because there's probably a lot of good fighters that could be out in them countries fighting that just can't afford it, isn't it?
Oh, exactly what's happened, and parents can't afford it, and and the thing about karate at grassroots is there's all sorts of different levels. I mean, we're not cheap at our place at all because it's a full-time building and it's only 11,000 square feet altogether, so it's a big place, and to buy that and heating, lighting, so we're not cheap, but we have another club nearby which is in a sports centre, and it's cheap, because I'm trying, but those people can come to all the courses and everything else that we hold. They just don't, those people. But you'll be amazed. Some parents who haven't really got the money, they will just put their hand in their pocket to pay for their kids to go because they think it's really important. So it's not always what you think. Some parents who have the money don't think it's worthwhile, so they don't do it. Oh, it's too expensive. But some parents, the parents who think it is worthwhile, somehow they do find the money. It's just that the governing bodies haven't got the money, And there's some governing bodies, of course, they haven't really got a proper setup. They hold world and European champions. We've got people out who go to them, come back with all these trophies. But anybody can enter. Anybody in your club can enter the World Championships. People like the WKF and that, completely different system. You've got to go all through, Midlands area or whatever area you're in. Then you go to the full squad. There's the fight-offs, and and then you may get picked. Then you go, and it can be a long process and expensive.
Yeah. So Mick, I'm just going to ask you a bit of a random question that I always ask my guests. Have you ever had to use your martial arts in a real life situation?
Yeah, a few times. I think, over the years, I mean, it's not like I fight every week, but when you're young, it happens more. You're out and people are drunk and this sort of thing. I've had to defend myself, but I'm really, like my son he's young and he's strong, and I've said to him, it's just not worth it. You hit these days, of course, so many people do martial arts. you could get tackled, and so all of a sudden you're fighting on the ground, and you're not used to that. But the thing is, you've got to be careful, because if you hit somebody with the head with a round kick, and this happened to a student of mine. Not with a round kick, he was a boxer, hit a guy, the guy fell, hit his head, and the guy died. And he ended up in Borstal for 2 years. He was just in a fight. So, I mean, how bad is that? And he said, oh, this guy came after me, we're just having a fight. And that's where the problem is. I mean, I've been attacked a few times, and be quite frank, it's usually fairly easy, because if they don't know what you do and they're standing with their hands at the sides and they're swinging a big arm, it's very easy to just take somebody down or just punch them or something. But I would never do it unless I really, really had to, because there could be a court case afterwards, you know, and something happened to a friend of mine. He was walking down a small road in Ipswich one Christmas. He was walking down and somebody ran up behind him, jumped on him and pulled him to the ground in a headlock. This guy was a Brammer, got on top, and when he got on top, the police had been wandering around. Somebody told him, came and arrested them both. And he said, I was attacked, this or and the other guy said, we were just having a fight. He got done for a fray, and you know, and he was just defending himself. So you know, if you can stay out of those situations. I mean, we do martial arts. If somebody attacks you, you got the right to defend yourself. You just got to. You can't go over the top, and you've got to maintain your head. You know, you don't want to go lunging madly in. If you can sweep somebody, or I mean, I wouldn't and never get into a situation where there are locks and arm bars and this sort of thing. I'd leave that to bouncers, where you know a couple of guys can get hold of somebody, put a wrist lock on, and it's so painful he can't move, and they can march him out. But if you're standing over somebody's, and you see all these things on YouTube and this sort of thing, you have to be careful. But two things I wouldn't do. One, I'd be very careful if it's more than one person. This is where jiu-jitsu guys have to watch out. If they go to the ground, somebody can come out from the and just kick you in the head and you're finished. If there's more than one person, you have to be careful, because if you're tackling one, you can be hit from behind. So, you know, I don't know if it's still done. We used to do 2 and 3 against 1 in the old days in karate. We tend not to do it we do it sometimes, but only with the high grades, because somebody can get hurt in this. And when we were training without the gloves, our first instructor, he didn't care. He thought this was great. I did 3 against 1 for my second cue. And, you know, of course, it's whack the people, you know. But you have to be careful now. You couldn't really hurt somebody, and it's difficult without if you're making everybody pull things in those situations. What happens is there's the fear element goes, and the fear element is really big in any full street fight.
Mick, just a couple of random questions, if you don't mind. What is your favourite technique?
Well, what it used to be, obviously there's more than one, but I used to love jump turn heel kick, because when I learnt that, I remember teaching on Tiki Donovan's course, try and hit we'd spar for an hour or something, session, once or twice during the week, and I can remember trying to hit every jump turn heel kick, because I loved it. But you know, when you think it, when you actually bring it down, now I can't do anything like that. When jump side kick, I loved, and there's quite a few photographs of me floating around, me doing jump side kick, but not a great fighting technique. But things like, you know, just reverse punch to the body. You know, I think most karate guys, it's going to be their staple. You know, but I love the flashy techniques, hence going into Taekwondo.
Yeah. And next random question for you. Who's been your biggest influence in martial arts?
Mick Donovan, by a long shot. I mean, he brought us in. He changed the way that we trained. He explained everything, distance, timing, and also he brought all styles together. You got people like Terry O'Neill and Billy Higgins fighting in your team, and him allowing us to spar with them and this sort of thing. And of course, he brought Dominic Valera over quite a few times. And when he held his courses, I taught on these courses for 10 years, and you had 300 people training for a week. So people were renting all the caravans, and it was discos, right, brilliant. And the training was hard, up early in the morning, running, and the instructors had you as an instructor, you were expected to do all this, and and he could do it all. You see, that was the thing. He could fight. His cardio was really good, and he was a great coach. And I think if you're gonna, I followed him so much that when he used to step out into fighting styles, he used to like to drop his body, a little bounce, and I used to do exactly the same thing. It's got to be hero worship, hasn't it?
So Mick, is there any words of advice for any youngsters that sort of want to get into martial arts? What sort of words of advice and guidance could you give them?
Well, I think if you go to the martial art, I think if it depends on the age. When you're young, I think karate's got to be best because it teaches you so many different aspects. Got to go to a good club though. The problem at the moment is it's all geographical. People go to the nearest club, and it's luck whether you get with anybody good. If you're a kid, you need your parents to sort it out. If you're older, you need to look around and look for the best club. And then if you get into karate, you're kicking, you're punching, everything else, and the sweeps and that, then you can decide really what you want to do. Do you want to go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and become what is basically a wrestler? So you've got wrestling, you've got Jiu-Jitsu, and you've got Judo, and then you've got stand-up. You've got your loads of karate styles, or you can get into kickboxing or Thai boxing. I love all this stuff. So there's not going to put anything down because I love it all. And there's the Krav Maga. I've done Krav Maga for quite a long time now, and that's quite good because it teaches you against 3 or 4 different people. But of course, you're not actually fighting. But it does teach you awareness of what's happening around you, because how to defend from the side, the back, and this sort of thing. Something else that may appeal. I can't say anything about the Chinese arts. I just don't know enough about them because I've never done it. And I think I wouldn't want to just say, oh, I don't think this is good, because I just don't know. So I wouldn't offer any sort of advice on that, but it may be somewhere you want to go. If you're old enough to go out on your own, go and look at all these places and talk to the instructors. If the instructors are any good, they'll talk to you, and you could go and do free sessions, and try it out. It's nice to train in a really nice school where they've got matted areas and showers and the whole bit, and weight sections and this sort of thing. But you can learn a lot from some guy who's in a hall with a wooden floor, if he's the right person, but I think look around would be my advice. Get the best instructor you possibly can.
So Mick, is there anywhere people can find you if they wanted to chat with you or come and train with you? Where can people find you?
Well, they can find me on Facebook. Has got to be the thing, hasn't it? I'm easily found on Facebook. My name's on there. My school's on there. It's something I can't answer. Well, they want to come down, I just put them in touch with one of the staff at the academy. The staff of martial arts, this is not some lady who's, cleaner by day, receptionist by night. Everybody works for us, is involved in their training and competing, or have competed, or whatever. And if they want to contact me through Facebook.
Oh, lovely, Mick. So can we just get your school name and your website, please, mate?
Yeah, it's just Blackwell Academy.
Blackwell Academy.
Blackwell Academy. Right. Now there is. It's got its own website. And if you're on Facebook, there's a lot of Blackwell Academies, because all the clubs that like Blackwell Academy Woodbridge, Blackwell Academy Laceham, Blackwell Academy Stonemark are different clubs, but the main school is just called Blackwell Academy. And obviously that's where I'm in Spain at the moment. I go back soon to do our summer course. I go back and teach boot camps and courses and this sort of thing.
Okay, Mick. Okay, we start winding it up there. Thank you ever so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure listening to your stories. Been great to listen to you and have you on. Thanks, Mick.
Okay, thanks very much, Lee.